The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound in the darkened hallways. The metallic walls of the Starfire gleamed softly under the artificial lighting. Captain Harrison sat alone in his small quarters, staring at the flickering screen before him. The mission was supposed to be simple. Long, isolated journey to a remote star system, a task to give the crew a quiet break from the chaos of the galaxy. But things had started to feel off. It had been weeks since they left the last inhabited system, and everything had been running smoothly until today. Sudden, unexplained malfunction in the ship's main systems left the crew scrambling for answers. Nothing like this had ever happened before. The captain had tried to get the engineers to fix it, but they couldn't find the cause. It was as if the ship itself was refusing to work properly. Captain Harrison, the voice of Ensign Rayner, crackled over the intercom. "We've got another issue. The navigation systems are down." "Not again," Harrison muttered, rubbing his tired eyes. "All right, I'm on my way." He stood up and straightened his uniform. As he stepped out of his quarters, the cold air of the hallway hit him. He glanced at the small clock mounted on the wall. Just past midnight. Most of the crew was asleep, and the silence in the ship was almost eerie. The only other person awake at this hour was Kara, the ship's alien navigator. She had been working in the control room alone for the past few hours, trying to figure out the glitches. Kara was an enigma to most of the crew. She was an alien from a distant star system, with strange silver eyes and long, dark hair that seemed to shimmer under the ship's lights. No one knew much about her past, and she kept it that way. She rarely spoke about herself, preferring to stay focused on her duties. But Harrison had always admired her skills. Her mind for navigation and star mapping was unmatched, and her calm, quiet demeanor made her easy to work with. He made his way through the narrow hallways of the ship and arrived at the control room. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing Kara sitting at her station, her fingers moving gracefully over the controls. She didn't look up as he entered. "Kara," Harrison said, his voice a little more tired than he intended. "What's going on? Can't keep going like this." Kara finally turned her head to face him. Her silver eyes met his, and for a moment, he saw a flicker of something, a hint of amusement, or maybe something deeper that he couldn't quite place. "It's not the systems, Captain," she said, her voice calm and almost musical. "It's the space around us. There's something unusual happening." Harrison frowned. "Unusual? What do you mean?" "I mean," Kara paused, her gaze shifting too. "The stars outside the window? This ship isn't just malfunctioning by chance. Something is interfering with our journey. It's not natural." Harrison crossed his arms, his suspicion growing. "What are you talking about? Is this some kind of alien interference?" Kara smirked. It was a small, knowing smile that seemed to hide 100 secrets. "I wouldn't say alien. Yes, something or someone is definitely affecting our systems." Harrison stared at her, unsure of how to respond. There was something about the way Kara said it that made him uneasy. He had never been the superstitious type, but his instincts were telling him that this wasn't just a random glitch. "Is it something we can fix?" he asked. Kara's smile faded as she turned back to her console. "I don't know. I need you to come with me. There's something I need to show you, something that's going to change everything." Harrison blinked in surprise. "What are you talking about?" Without answering, Kara stood up and walked toward the door. She pressed a few buttons on the wall, and the door slid open. She looked over her shoulder at Harrison, a glint of mischief in her eyes. "Follow me, Captain. I promise it's just the two of us here." Harrison hesitated, but his curiosity got the better of him. He followed Kara as she led him down the narrow hallway, her steps quick and purposeful. They passed several crew quarters before Kara stopped in front of a door at the end of the corridor. "This is my cabin," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I need to show you something inside." The door slid open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. The walls were covered with strange alien symbols and maps of distant star systems. A strange device hummed softly in the corner of the room, blinking with blue light. It wasn't anything the captain recognized, but it seemed important. Kara stepped inside, and Harrison followed. As he did, the door slid shut behind him with a soft hiss, and the sound of the ship's hum faded away. "Kara," What is this? Harrison asked, looking around the room, feeling a strange tension in the air. Kara turned to him, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She took a step closer, her gaze locking with his. Everything you think you know about this mission, she said quietly, is about to change. I need you to trust me, Captain. The real journey is just beginning. Harrison stood frozen for a moment, the weight of her words settling over him. He wasn't sure if he could trust her. He didn't even know if he should, but something in her voice told him that he didn't have a choice. Before he could respond, Kara closed the gap between them. She was so close now, he could feel the heat of her body. It's just the two of us here, she whispered, her smirk returning as she locked eyes with him. And we're about to make a choice that will change everything. The room felt smaller with every passing second, the strange device in the corner humming softly as if it was alive. Harrison stood still, his eyes flickering over the alien symbols on the walls. They looked like nothing he had ever seen before, lines and curves that seemed to move ever so slightly as though they were alive. Kara stood in front of him, her silver eyes reflecting the faint glow of the symbols. Her calm demeanor hadn't changed, but something about the way she held herself was different. She was no longer just the ship's navigator. In that moment she felt more like a guide, someone who had knowledge Harrison could only begin to comprehend. Kara, Harrison began, his voice steady but uncertain. What's going on? What is this place? Kara took a slow breath, her eyes never leaving his. She stepped toward the strange device in the corner, her fingers hovering just above it. It was a round object, pulsating with soft blue light, and it hummed in a low frequency that resonated deep inside Harrison's chest. This device, Kara said softly, is what's been causing the disruptions. It's not part of the ship, but it's connected to something much larger than any of us. Harrison frowned. What do you mean? How does it work? Kara's smirk returned. But it wasn't the playful smirk she usually wore. This one was something darker, filled with secrets Harrison hadn't yet unlocked. It doesn't work the way you think. It's not a piece of technology. Something much older, something far beyond the understanding of most races. Harrison's stomach twisted. Are you saying this ship was sabotaged? That someone set us up to fail? Kara's silver eyes flashed with a mix of concern and something else. It's not sabotage, Captain. It's much more than that. This ship is in the middle of an ancient game, and we are the players. She walked to the center of the room, her movements fluid, almost like a dance. Harrison watched her, trying to make sense of her words. He had known Kara was different, but this was beyond anything he had ever expected. He'd assumed she was just a brilliant navigator, an alien with a mysterious past, but now it was clear that there was so much more to her than he realized. Game. Harrison echoed, his voice low. What do you mean by that? Kara turned to face him, her eyes filled with something ancient, something he couldn't quite place. There are forces in the galaxy, powerful, ancient forces, that have been pulling the strings for eons. They control the paths of ships, the routes of entire fleets, all for their own amusement. And now, Captain, they've set their sights on us. Harrison's mind raced. He had heard stories of powerful races, of alien forces who played games with the lives of others, but he had never truly believed them. He had always been the practical type, believing only what he could see with his own eyes. But now, with the way Kara was speaking, it was hard to ignore the growing suspicion in his gut that something beyond the stars was controlling their fate. So, hey, you're saying this devices thing in the corner is connected to these ... forces? Harrison asked, his voice tight. Kara nodded slowly. Yes, this device is a key to unlocking their power. It's been hidden away for centuries, waiting for the right moment to be found. And now, that moment has come. Took a step closer to the device, drawn by the pulsing light. It felt warm, almost inviting, but he could feel a warning in the back of his mind. He shouldn't trust it. She shouldn't trust anything about this. But why bring me here? Harrison asked. Why show me all of this? Kara's gaze softened, and for the first time, she looked vulnerable. Because you are part of the equation, Captain. You have been since the moment we left the last system. Think this mission was just a routine job, don't you? Harrison's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Kara stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. This mission was never about the destination. It was about the journey. It was about getting you here into this place, at this exact time. You and I are connected, Captain. I can feel it. For a moment, Harrison was speechless. He wanted to pull away, to dismiss her words as some kind of strange delusion, but the sincerity in her eyes made him pause. She wasn't lying. She wasn't playing some kind of game. Kara believed every word she said, and that scared him more than anything. We're connected? Harrison repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. How? Kara took another step forward, her presence overwhelming. I don't know yet, but we will find out together. We're in this together, Captain. Whatever happens next, you can't leave. Harrison swallowed hard, his mind spinning with confusion and fear. He had always thought of himself as a man of action, someone who could solve any problem with logic and reason. But this was something he couldn't explain. There was no logic to it. There's no reason. What do we do now? He asked, his voice barely steady. Kara smiled, and for a moment, she almost looked like a different person, someone much older, much wiser. Oh, she said softly. We play their game. The room felt colder now, the air heavier. Harrison's heart raced as he realized the weight of her words. This wasn't just a malfunction. This wasn't just a ship in trouble. It was something far bigger, something that was about to change everything. He wasn't sure what Kara meant by play their game, but one thing was certain. He was in deeper than he had ever imagined. The soft hum of the ship's systems echoed in the cabin as Kara and Harrison stood facing each other, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Harrison's mind raced. He had expected a routine mission, a peaceful journey through space. Now, it seemed that everything was unraveling around him. The ship wasn't malfunctioning by accident. It was part of something bigger, something far beyond his understanding. Kara moved toward the strange device in the corner, her fingers grazing its surface. The pulsing blue light flickered in response, as though it recognized her touch. She glanced over her shoulder, her silver eyes meeting Harrison's. This device, she began, her voice calm yet filled with urgency, is not just a key. It's a message. A signal that something much greater is on its way. Harrison felt a shiver run down his spine. He didn't understand what she meant, but he knew enough to recognize that whatever was coming, they weren't ready for it. Something greater, he repeated, trying to make sense of it all. What are we dealing with, Kara? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped back from the device, her eyes briefly closing as if she were listening to something beyond the ship's walls. When she opened her eyes again, there was a quiet determination in her gaze. I don't know yet, she said slowly, but I feel it. I've always felt it. The galaxy is full of ancient forces, Captain, forces that are beyond our control, and right now, they're watching us. Harrison's heart thudded in his chest. He had spent most of his life flying ships and charting courses, but he had never faced anything like this. He was a man of science, not superstition. Yet something in Kara's tone made him wonder if everything he had believed in was about to change. We're just sitting ducks, aren't we? Harrison asked, his voice tinged with frustration. This ship is out of control, and we're stuck here with no way to fight back. Kara's lips curled into a slight smile, but it wasn't the playful grin she often wore. This smile was full of knowing, as if she had expected this reaction. You're not stuck, Captain, she said quietly. Not yet. Harrison was about to ask what she meant when a soft beeping filled the room. Kara turned swiftly, moving to another control panel along the wall. She tapped a few buttons, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed a map of their current location, with blinking red markers, indicating unknown anomalies in the nearby space. We're in a pocket of space, Kara said, her voice tense now. A space where time and reality are ... warped. This ship is caught in the center of it. Harrison leaned closer to the display, his mind struggling to process the information. So we're trapped here? How do we get out? Kara's eyes flickered briefly to him before returning to the map. That's what I need to figure out, but there's a problem. For others who know we're here, they won't let us leave without a price." Harrison felt a wave of unease wash over him. He had never been one to back down from a challenge, but this felt different. It wasn't just facing a broken ship or a mechanical failure. They were up against forces they couldn't even see. Forces that had the power to control the very fabric of space itself. "Who are these others?" Harrison asked, his voice low. Kara turned to face him, her eyes hard and resolute. "I don't know all the details, but I know that they are ancient beings, old as the stars themselves. They've been watching us, guiding us into this trap, and they won't let us escape without paying a heavy toll." Harrison's stomach tightened. "A toll? What kind of toll?" Kara didn't answer immediately. She walked over to the control panel again, her fingers flying across the interface. The holographic display flickered and shifted, showing a series of strange symbols and patterns. "They're the ones who sent the signal," Kara said finally, her voice tinged with a mixture of fear and resolve. "The signal that brought us here. They've been waiting for someone to find this device. Now that it's activated, they'll come. They won't stop until they get what they want." Harrison stepped closer, trying to make sense of everything she was saying. "And you expect me to help you? To help us both get out of this?" Kara met his gaze, her silver eyes intense. "You don't have a choice, Captain. You're already part of this. You've been drawn into it the moment you boarded this ship. And whether you like it or not, we're in this together." Harrison's mind reeled. This wasn't what he had signed up for. He was just a pilot, not some hero in an ancient cosmic struggle. But as he looked at Kara, standing there with that determined look on her face, he realized she was right. There was no turning back now. "Fine," Harrison said, his voice steadying. "We'll figure this out together, but I need to know. What we're dealing with, I need a plan." Kara nodded, her expression softening. "We're not alone. There are others who have tried to stop them before, but they failed. The key is in here, Captain." She motioned to the strange device. "In the corner of the room. If we can unlock its power, we can fight back." Harrison looked at the device once more, his mind racing. He didn't know what Kara meant by unlocking its power, but he knew they didn't have much time. If these ancient beings were as powerful as she claimed, they wouldn't hesitate to destroy them both. "I'm with you," Harrison said, his voice firm. "Let's do this." Kara gave him a small, approving nod. "Good. Then we'll face this together. No more running, no more hiding." As the two of them stood in the cabin, the hum of the ship grew louder, almost as if it were alive, responding to the tension in the air. They were no longer just a captain and a navigator. They were allies bound together by forces they couldn't yet understand. But Harrison knew one thing for sure. They had to act quickly. The game had begun. The ship's hum seemed louder now, vibrating in Harrison's chest as he and Kara stood silently in the dimly lit cabin. The weight of their situation hung in the air, thick and oppressive. Harrison had always trusted in his training, his ability to think logically under pressure. But none of that seemed to matter now. They were caught in something far beyond the ordinary, something that no amount of skill or experience could prepare him for. Kara turned away from him, moving to a nearby console. Her fingers danced over the controls with practiced ease. The holographic displays flickered, showing star maps and alien symbols that made Harrison feel more lost with each passing moment. He couldn't help but wonder how much Kara truly knew. How much of this was planned, and how much of it was a surprise even to her. "Said these forces have been watching us," Harrison said, trying to keep his voice calm. "But why? Why us? What do they want?" Kara's fingers paused on the controls, and for a brief moment, Harrison thought she wouldn't answer. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before, almost as if she were talking to herself. "I wasn't always a navigator, Captain," she said quietly. "I was part of something much larger." Harrison frowned. "Part of what?" Kara took a slow breath, turning to face him. Her silver eyes were filled with a sadness he hadn't seen before. "My people, the Shirians. We were once a powerful race, one of the oldest in the galaxy. We had knowledge, power, things that most other species could only dream of." Harrison listened closely, his curiosity piqued. He had always known that Kara was different, but hearing her speak of her past with such emotion made him realize how little he truly understood about her. We ruled the stars. Kara continued, her voice steady but tinged with regret. We were the keepers of ancient knowledge, but we made a terrible mistake. We thought we could control the forces that were beyond our reach. We thought we could harness the power of the void itself. Harrison stepped closer, his mind racing. What happened? Did your people fail? Kara nodded, a shadow passing over her face. We were wrong. The forces we tried to control. They're not just power, they're alive. When we tried to bind them to our will, they fought back. My people paid the price. Harrison's heart sank as he realized the depth of her pain. So your people are gone? Kara's eyes hardened, the sadness turning into something darker. Most of them. Most of us were scattered across the galaxy, hiding from those we angered. The forces we tried to control have been hunting us ever since. And now, they've found me. Harrison didn't know what to say. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. He had always thought of Kara as just another crew. Member, a skilled navigator who happened to be from a distant world. But now, she was something more, someone with a tragic past. Someone who had made choices that haunted her. You've been running from them ever since? Harrison asked quietly. Kara's gaze softened, and for a brief moment she looked like the person she used to be before the burden of her past weighed her down. Yes, I've tried to hide, tried to protect the last remnants of my people. But now, with this device, it's all coming back. The forces are calling me, and I can't run anymore. Harrison's mind whirled as he tried to piece everything. Together, he had thought they were just trying to fix a ship, just trying to escape some cosmic interference. But this was much bigger. This was a story of loss, of power, of forces that had the power to reshape the galaxy. So you're saying that the device we found, it's connected to these forces? Harrison asked Datsa. Era nodded slowly, her silver eyes flashing with a mixture of fear and resolve. The device is the key to unlocking their power. It was hidden for a reason, so that no one could use it again. But now, it's been activated, and they'll come for it. They'll come for me. Harrison felt a surge of determination rise within him. Couldn't let Kara face this alone. He didn't know everything about her past, but he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't about to let her walk into this fight without help. You're not alone in this, Harrison said firmly. We'll figure this out together. Kara looked at him, surprise flickering in her eyes. For a moment, she said nothing, as if she were weighing his words. Finally, she nodded, her expression softening. Thank you, Captain. I didn't expect you to say that. Harrison smiled, the corners of his mouth twitching, despite the gravity of the situation. You're one of us now, Kara, and we don't leave people behind. She seemed to consider his words for a moment before walking over to the strange device in the corner. She placed her hand on it, and the blue light pulsed in response. The air in the room grew heavier, charged with energy. They're coming, Kara said quietly, her voice filled with both fear and resolve. And when they arrive, we'll have to be ready. Harrison stepped closer, standing beside her as they both stared at the device. He could feel the weight of the situation bearing down on them, but there was no turning back now. They had a choice: face the ancient forces together, or be destroyed. We'll be ready, Harrison said, his voice steady. We have to be. For the first time since this entire nightmare began, Kara allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible smile. It was brief, but it was enough to give Harrison hope. Together they would face whatever came next. They had no other choice. The ship's lights flickered as the eerie hum of the device grew louder, pulsing in sync with the tension in the air. Harrison and Kara stood side by side, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. They had made a choice to face what was coming, to stand together. But the question remained: would they be enough to stop the ancient forces now closing in on them? The control room had become a flurry of activity. Kara was moving swiftly between the consoles, her fingers working with precision as she input commands. Harrison watched, his mind racing, trying to keep up with the situation. The device is linked to something bigger, Kara said, her voice steady, despite the urgency. It's a beacon, a call, and they're answering. Harrison felt a chill run down his spine. He had known this wasn't going to be easy, but he hadn't realized the full extent of what they were up against. These ancient forces weren't just something out of Kara's past, they were a living threat, one that would stop at nothing to claim the power of the device. "Who are they, Kara?" Harrison asked, his voice rough with frustration.
What?
"Do they want with you? With us?" Kara paused for a moment, her eyes locked on the control panel. She seemed lost in thought, her mind traveling back to a time long before she became the navigator aboard the Starfire. "They were the ones who made us," Kara said, her voice soft, almost distant. "The ones who created my people, the Shirians. We were meant to serve them, but we rebelled. We sought freedom, power, and knowledge that they didn't want us to have. Now we're nothing more than their enemies." Harrison stared at her, taking in her words. The Shirians had once been a powerful race, but they had defied their creators, and now their very existence was at risk. And Kara, as the last of her kind, had been running from those ancient forces ever since. "We're not just caught in the middle of this, are we?" Harrison said, his voice sharp. "We're part of it. You brought me into this by bringing me aboard this ship. This device. This Keats drawing us in." Kara's eyes met his, and for a moment he saw the weight of guilt in them. "I never meant for you to be part of this, Harrison. I didn't want to involve you. The moment I activated the device, there was no turning back." Harrison's fists clenched. "So what now? Do we just wait for them to come?" Kara didn't answer right away. Instead, she moved to another panel and began typing rapidly. The ship's systems were being accessed remotely, and she could feel the presence of the ancient forces growing closer. "No," she finally said, her voice low but filled with resolve. "We fight." Before Harrison could respond, the ship shook violently, and a warning alarm blared through the room. A bright light flashed from the device, blinding them both for a moment. When the light faded, a new holographic display appeared. In the center of the room was a star map, but it wasn't one Harrison recognized. It showed the Starfire surrounded by dozens of glowing red dots, each one representing an incoming ship.ca. Ara cursed under her breath. "They've arrived." Harrison's heart skipped a beat. The ships surrounding them were unlike anything he had ever seen. Massive, dark shapes that seemed to shimmer with energy, their designs nothing like the sleek, streamlined crafts of the human fleets. These ships were ancient, older than anything Harrison had encountered in his years as a pilot. "They're here for the device," Kara said, her voice tight with fear. "And for me?" Harrison took a deep breath, pushing his fear aside. "What do we do now?" Kara's eyes flashed with determination. "We don't have time to hesitate. I've been preparing for this moment for years. I know a way out. We'll need to move quickly." Harrison glanced at the star map, then back at Kara. He could see the look in her eyes, a mix of resolve and desperation. They had no choice now but to trust each other completely. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about taking a stand. "Let's do it," Harrison said, his voice firm. "We need to get to the main engine room. I'll help you. Power up the ship. You keep that device safe." Kara nodded, her eyes gleaming with gratitude. She quickly tapped a series of commands into the console, and the ship's lights flickered again, signaling the start of their escape. They moved through the narrow corridors of the Starfire, their steps quick and purposeful. Harrison couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that the ships outside were closing in on them, ready to destroy them at any moment. But Kara's calm demeanor kept him focused. She was leading them, and for the first time since this all began, Harrison felt a sense of purpose. They reached the engine room. Kara immediately set to work, her fingers moving over the controls with practiced ease. Harrison kept a lookout, watching the display screens, his heart racing as he saw the incoming ships draw closer. "We have to power up the engines now," Kara said, her voice urgent. "If we don't get the jump drive online, we won't make it out of here alive." Harrison nodded, his hands moving quickly over the console as he powered up the ship's systems. The engine room came alive with a low, rumbling sound as the engines began to hum. Outside, the incoming ships were almost within firing range, almost there. Harrison muttered to himself, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead. Come on. Kara stepped up beside him, her eyes flickering over the systems. It's now or never, she said quietly. Harrison hit the final sequence. The Starfire lurched forward as the jump drive powered up. The room filled with the sound of the engines, and the ship surged into action, racing toward the vast emptiness of space. But as the ship left the incoming enemy fleet behind, Harrison knew this wasn't over. The ancient forces wouldn't let them escape so easily, and the only way out was to keep moving forward together. The Starfire was no longer the calm, steady ship it had been just days ago. Now, it was a vessel fleeing through the darkness of space, engines roaring with power as Kara and Harrison pushed the ship to its limits. Stars stretched past them, a blur as the ship entered the faster-than-light jump. Harrison's heart still raced from the close call, but the feeling of escape was short-lived. The ancient forces that had pursued them were not easily left behind. Kara stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the displays as she navigated them through the chaos. Harrison stood beside her, his mind still processing everything that had happened. The Starfire had narrowly avoided destruction, but the question still lingered. What would happen next? What would they do now that they had no place left to hide? The ship shook as they passed through another jump gate. And Kara's calm voice filled the cockpit. We're safe for now, she said, her eyes still focused on the blinking stars outside, but not for long. We've outrun them, but they'll be coming after us. They always do. Harrison exhaled, rubbing his forehead. I never thought I'd be running from something like this, he said quietly. I signed up for a quiet mission, a peaceful trip across the stars. But now, it's like we're caught in some kind of war between gods. Kara turned to him, her silver eyes filled with both sympathy and understanding. It's not your fault, Captain. You didn't choose to be part of this. But now that you are, you need to understand. This war is not about you or me. It's about something much bigger, something that's been happening for centuries. Rassen looked at her, his mind still struggling to understand. And you? What do you want from all of this? Kara hesitated for a moment, then walked over to the nearby console, tapping a few keys. The screen came to life, showing the star systems they had passed through. She gestured to a small, glowing dot on the map. This is where I was born, Kara said softly. The Shirian homeworld, a place where my people were once at peace. And this, she pointed to another dot, is where they fell. The place where we tried to control forces we didn't understand. Harrison stepped closer, looking at the dots on the map. He could sense the weight of her words, the deep history behind them. Kara had lost everything: her people, her home, her purpose. And now, all that was left was a path of escape, a journey to find something she couldn't even explain. I was part of the rebellion, Kara continued, her voice steady but filled with a sadness Harrison hadn't heard before. We tried to fight them. We thought we could change the galaxy, break free from their control, but we failed. The price of defiance was more than any of us could bear. My people were scattered, hunted, and now I'm the last one. I can't hide anymore. Harrison took a deep breath. You don't have to face this alone, Kara. We're in this together. I may not understand everything that's happening, but I'm not going to turn my back on you. Not now. Kara looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of doubt. When she found none, she gave a small nod. Thank you, Captain, she said, her voice quiet but genuine. But we both know that what's coming won't be easy. We have to be ready. The ship jumped again, this time to a new system, far from the reach of the ancient forces that had hunted them. For now, they were safe, but Kara's words lingered in Harrison's mind. The battle wasn't over. It was only just beginning. They spent the next few days preparing, just trying to repair the ship's systems and refuel, all while staying hidden from the enemies that were surely still searching for them. But despite the urgency, there was a quiet understanding between them. They weren't just two people on a ship anymore. They were a team, bound together by fate and a shared purpose. Harrison worked alongside Kara, learning more about her people and the powers that had shaped their history. They discussed strategies and ways to evade their pursuers, but there were still so many unknowns. The forces Kara had warned him about were not just powerful, they were ancient. older than any civilization Harrison had encountered. They had shaped the galaxy in ways he couldn't even comprehend. One evening, after another long day of work, Harrison found himself standing in front of the ship's window, staring out at the vastness of space. The stars twinkled peacefully, a stark contrast to the turmoil he felt inside. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't some brave warrior destined to save the galaxy. He was just a man trying to survive in a universe that had suddenly become far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Kara walked up beside him, her footsteps quiet against the floor. She didn't say anything at first, just stood there next to him, looking out at the stars as well. "I don't know what's next," Harrison said after a long silence. "I don't know how we're going to win this fight, but I know one thing: we can't give up. Not now." Kara's gaze softened. "We won't," she replied quietly. "We may not know what's coming, but we can face it together. It's all we can do." Harrison nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle in his chest. It was true. They didn't know what was coming, but they had each other. And in the end, that might be all they needed. As the ship continued its journey through the stars, they both understood that their path was uncertain. But one thing was clear: they were no longer just two people running from their past. They were partners, united by a shared goal to survive, to fight, and, if possible, to change the fate that had been forced upon them. The journey ahead would be dangerous. But as long as they faced it together, Harrison knew they could overcome whatever the galaxy threw their way.